Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Patience. In today's video we are going to be making this beautiful tiered ruffle tulle pant with an elastic waistband. So before we get started, kindly click the subscribe button. If you have done that, let's get into it. So I'll be using this doll face satin fabric, and it is 2 yards, and I'll also be using this hard tulle, and it is 30 yards. I folded my fabric into 2 this way, and I've gone ahead to mark the waistline, and from the waistline I'll mark the crotch depth, which is 12 inches. So on an average, the crotch depth is 12 inches. Now I am going to mark the full length, which is 42 inches. And I'll be adding 1 inch for hemming allowance, that is 43 inches. After doing that, on the waistline, I will go in by 1.5 inches, and on the crotch line, I'll go in by 1/2 inch. And on the hem line, I'll go in by 1 inch. And I'll connect the lines. I will be attaching an elastic band on the waist of this pant, and of course the pant will have to pass through the hip. So I'll be using the hip measurement on the waist. Quarter of my hip circumference is 11 inches. So I'll mark 11 inches on the waistline, and I'll add 1/2 inch for sewing allowance, that is 11.5 inches. In order to mark a straight line to the crouch, I'll measure what I have here. From this 11.5 inches to the edge of the fabric is 13 inches. So I'll mark 13 inches on the crotch line to have a straight line. After doing that, I am going to mark half of my round tie measurement, which is 15 inches. So I'll be marking the 15 inches from this line, as you can see. And I am going to make a curve this way. On the hem, I will mark 10 inches. It depends on how wide you want it. You can use 12 inches. And I am going to connect it this way. So this is a dartless basic pant. The elastic band is going to give the pant its shape, and I'm going to cut this out. I'll add 1/2 inch on the waist for sewing allowance. I have a detailed video on how to draft a basic trouser. You can check that out. I'll drop the link on the description box below. So this is the front piece, and I am going to slant the waist by 1 inch. Now to cut out the back piece, I've gone ahead to place the front piece on another folded fabric this way, and I'll be cutting out this shape. As you can see, I left space here. From this edge, I'll go in by 1.5 inches, and from the 1.5 inches I'll come up by 1 inch, and from this point I'll make a slant line past the 1 inch. So you want to make sure you leave some space on the back piece and also on the side, because the back piece is bigger than the front piece. Now I'll mark the 11.5 inches I used for the waist circumference on this new line, and I'll add 2.5 inches. So you can add 2.5 or 3 inches, and if you're making for a plus size, you can add 4 inches. I'm going to extend this line and I'll connect this point to this point. And I'll mark 2 inches or 2.5 inches, and I'll make a curve this way. And on the hem, I am also going to extend the line and mark 2 inches. I'll connect the lines and I'll cut it out. This is the back piece, and for the front piece I am going to cut out the slanted line. So this is the front piece and the back piece. Now I'll be sewing on 1/2 inch on the crotch line this way on the front piece and the back piece. I've done that. Now I'll place the right side this way, and I am going to join either the side seam or the crotch area. So you can choose one. You can join the crotch area or the side seam, and I'll be joining the crotch area. I am going to align it this way, and I will sew on 1/2 inch down to the hem, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. I've done that. I joined the crotch area, and later, after attaching my ruffle, I am going to sew the side seam. I'll hem by the 1 inch for hemming allowance. I've done that. As you can see, I did not sew the side seam, so I'll be attaching the ruffle before I join the side seam. And to do that, I am going to be marking the guidelines for my ruffle. So I'll be making 8 layers of ruffle on this pant, and the length of the pant is 42 inches. I am going to divide the 42 inches by 8. That will give me 5.25. But I'll be marking 5 inches from the 1st to 6th layer, and for the 7th and 8th layer I'll use 6 inches. So I'll mark 5 inches, and I'll mark 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That is 1 to 6 layers. and then I am going to extend the lines, so I'll mark the same measurement here. After doing that, I'll connect the lines and I'll do the same thing on the right leg. I've done that, and as you can see, it is 5 inches space. Now I'll mark the 7th and the 8th layer. So from the waist, I'll mark 6 inches, and from the midpoint here, I'll start from the 1 inch I took out for my slant. So on the back piece, I am also going to mark 6 inches, and on the midpoint, I'll mark 7 inches because of the 1 inch I added for slant. So now I am done marking out the guidelines, and I'll go ahead to cut out the tulle for the ruffle. Like I said, the tulle is 30 yards, so I'll be using 3 yards on each layer, that is the left and the right leg. Now this is the 3 yards and the length is by 62 inches. What I did was I folded the 3 yards into 2. As you can see, this is the folded edge, and I fold it again. Now I am going to align the edge and pin it down. So this is another easy way for me to cut out the tulle, and I'll be marking 10 inches. That is the length of the tulle. This is 3 yards and the length is 62 inches, so I'll mark out 6 layers. After doing that, I am going to cut it out. So before I cut it out, I'll pin it down this way to keep it in place, and I'll cut it out. So this is 10 inches, as you can see. So I'll be cutting out 6 layers. So I am going to cut out all, this is the second layer. I am going to cut out all the tulle this way. I'll be using the same 10 inches length. So this is the first layer, and I got 6 pieces from the 3 yards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll be using 1, 2, 3 for the right leg and 3 for the left leg, starting from the hem of the pant. Now I am going to align the 3 pieces together this way, and I'll use the longest stitch on my sewing machine to sew on 1/2 inch all through the 3 yards, and I'll gather it for my ruffle. So I've gone ahead to cut out the rest. Now to know the length of the ruffle I will make, I'm going to measure each layer. So on the first, second and third layer, I'll be using the 3 yards, and on the fourth layer I am going to use 4 yards, and on the 5th layer I will use 5 yards, and on the 6th layer I am going to use 6 yards. Like I said, I'll be using 3 yards on the 1st layer, 2nd and 3rd, and on the 4th layer I'll be using 4 yards of tulle. On the 5th layer I'll be using 5 yards, and 6th I'll be using 6 yards. Now on the 7th layer I'll be using 7 yards. Remember, it's going round. And on the 8th layer on the waist I'll be using 7 yards also. On the 7th and the 8th layer I will join 4 pieces of tulle. Now I've used the longest stitch on my sewing machine to sew 1/2 inch all through the 3 yards on the 1st layer, and this is 3 pieces. Now I am going to make my ruffle. For the 1st to 6th layer I'll be joining 3 pieces of tulle, and for the 7th and the 8th layer I'll be joining 4 pieces of tulle. And remember, I said I'll be using 7 yards for the 7th and the 8th layer. So this is the 1st layer, starting from the hem of the pants, and this is 3 yards, and I joined 3 pieces for the left and the right leg. And this is the 2nd layer for the left and the right leg, and this is the 3rd layer for the 2nd and the right leg, and they are all 3 yards. Now this is the 4th layer for the left and the right leg, and it is 4 yards. And this is the 5th layer for the left and the right leg, and it is 5 yards. And this is the 6th layer for the left and the right leg, and it is 6 yards. So this is the 7th layer. Like I said, I joined 4 pieces, and this is 7 yards. And this is the 8th layer, and it is the same thing. I joined 4 pieces, and it is also 7 yards. Now I am going to be placing them on the guidelines, and I am going to trim it out a bit. Now on the edge of the ruffle, I am going to sew by 1/4 inch, so I'll pin it down for you to understand. Now I am going to sew by 1/4 inch down to the hem, and I'll do the same thing on each layer. I'll sew the edge by 1/4 inch. After doing that, I'll sew by 1/2 inch on the guideline, and when I get to the other edge, I'll do the same thing. I'll sew the edge by 1/4 inch, and I'll repeat the same process on each layer. I've done that. I've attached the 1st to the 6th layer of the ruffle, and this is how it came out. So you can attach it before you trim, or you can trim before you attach. So it came out really full and beautiful, and now I'll be joining the 7th and the 8th layer. As you can see, I joined the side by 1/4 inch like I said on both sides. So now I'll be joining the side seam, so I'll place good sides together this way, and I'll make sure I align it, and also by 1/2 inch on both sides of the pants. So I'll make sure to also join the edge of the tulle, that way it will not show that there is a joining on the side seam. I've done that. I've joined the side seam. As you can see, it is not showing on the side seam. Now I am going to attach the 7th and the 8th layer. So to do that, I am going to join the edge by 1/4 inch, and I'll attach it on the guideline. I'll do the same thing on this. I'll join the edge by 1/4 inch and I'll attach it on the waist. I've done that. As you can see, I joined the 8th layer on the waistline and I trimmed the excess. So I've attached the 7th and the 8th layer. Now I'll measure round the waist, cut out the band, and I'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance. So I've done that. I've cut out the band and I ironed an interfacing, as you can see. So the length is 4 inches. I folded 1/2 inch on both sides and fold it again, and now I have 1.5 inch for the band, that is the elastic casing. So to attach the band, I am going to place it on the wrong side this way and pin it down starting from like 3 inches. I'll pin it down round. So when I get to the other edge, I am going to leave about 3 inches and I'll join the edge together this way. I'll make sure to align it and also by 1/2 inch, and then I am going to top stitch on the right side. I've done that. I've made the top stitch and this is how beautiful it came out, and I left about 1.5 inches space that I'll pass my elastic band. So to do that, I am going to be using a safety pin to pass my elastic band through. After doing that, I'll join the elastic band by 1/2 inch and I'll top stitch the 1.5 inches space I left. I've done that and it came out really beautiful. So if you have not subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? If this was helpful and if you learned a thing or two, kindly give this video a thumbs up and also click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to be updated when I upload a new video. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.